Today I'm going to show you how I create content using agents inside of Claude Code. So you've never heard of Claude Code or agents, you're in for a treat. This system that I built out inside of Claude Code has multiple processes, MCPs. It accesses the internet, goes and finds trending videos, titles, hooks. It does all of the hook research, the title research. It reverse engineers it for me. It has access to my ideas, my notes, database with all the quotes from books that I'm reading, and it helps me create really compelling scripts for my videos and newsletters. It repurposes it into short form videos, and it can do all of these things inside of Claude Code using agents, using MCPs, using the various processes that I built. And so I'm really excited for this one. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ethan Nelson. I built and sold over $200,000 worth of AI systems in the last year. And recently I've been diving deep into Claude Code and learning how to build workflows, processes, and various systems inside of Claude Code so that I can remain as a human in the loop and I can kind of coordinate the content process. Because if you're watching this video, you probably see that content is the core part of my business. Teaching people these processes and talking about AI is the thing that I am most passionate about in life. And so I decided to kind of up the quality of the content that I have been making. And I'm really excited to show you what Claude Code can do when you give it some tools and you teach it a little bit of your process. All right, so let's dive right in. So before we go into the actual Claude Code setup, I want to show you kind of the schemas and some of the processes of what I built out. And so this is one of the processes that I built out. Claude Code is kind of like the orchestrator, right? And then it has access to various different copywriting frameworks. I actually like a lot of Dan Koh's frameworks. He has a course called the 2-Hour Writer, which I kind of use to help guide me through some of these processes. But a lot of it is, there's different aspects of this process, right? So first it asked me about, what idea do we want to talk about? And then once it asked me what idea we want to talk about, it then uses various different MCPs, right? So we have the trends research agent, YouTube analytics agent, web research, content analysis, and we have the content creation agents, which is the script structure, hook generation, copywriting agent, vibe marketing agent. Then we have the strategy agent, which kind of has context about my life, my goals, my notes, so it can bring in a personal touch. And then we have the knowledge agents and so on and so forth. So that's kind of like the core of the system. And now if I show you some of these, the other aspects of the system here, we'll do this trend discovery. It will fetch trends on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, primarily YouTube. And then it will find outliers, like what videos are performing better than average on various different channels. And then I will extract the transcripts from them and I will analyze the hook patterns, the story structure, the key topics. And then I will use that to generate the hooks, to load the copywriting frameworks, like such as problem, agitate, solution, attention, interest, desire, something else, AIDA. And it uses these patterns in these various different books from the copywriting giants like David Ogilvy to kind of learn how to structure things. It will analyze the trends, create the hooks, and then it will use my Notion database to not only take ideas but also create content. And then there's various different processes, right? And so here's another version of it. You kind of seen a little bit of what the different MCPs are, but if we go down here, this is the personal context layer. So I have, anytime I read a book, I have this tool called Readwise that will save any of the quotes from Kindle into a database. So if I show you inside of Notion here, I guess we're already inside of Notion. I'll show you in a second. There's the Readwise database. There's the frameworks and mental models that I use in my life. That's the strategy database. The content database is all the scripts and pieces of content. There's the content intelligence vault, which is like a database of hooks, titles, and basically all the top performing content that I found on the internet, or rather that the Claude agent has found. It reverses engineers it, it studies it, and it turns it into this database of really high quality hooks and titles. I have the notes database. Anytime I have an idea, I record a voice note and it just saves it into the notes database. Then I have the task database. This is less for the content creation, but more for project management. So I'm not going to go into that today, but I'm going to show you the Readwise database, the content database, the content intelligence vault. So now if we go back here, here's the content database. It's basically just a Kanban board. with different types of content. I actually don't need this piece of content. And so it has all my ideas. It has ready to be filmed added to ClickUp. So anytime I have an idea, I didn't create any of these cards. Claude created these, Claude Code did. And so whenever I have an idea, I will show you what the process looks like. And then whenever the script is pretty close to being finished, it just gets auto updated in this database. And now here's where it pulls from. I have the content intelligence vault. This has hooks, and these hooks are analyzed on many different domains. So let's say this hook, right? We can see the title, we can see the hook, we can see the duration of the hook. It's on YouTube long form, the emotional trigger, the type. We have what type of hook it is, a question, bold statement, story, contrarian take, and then the platform, the quality, etc., etc. And then it will actually rank it. So this one is not a great example, but it actually, if it can pull the data of the comments, the views, etc., it will rank how high quality it is, and then it will analyze it. Here's why it works. Here's the formula, here's the original hook. Here's the performance metrics, right? And it will take this, we'll take all this information, and then inside of Claude Code can access this database. So when we're writing content, I have various commands and processes that will run multiple different agents, and it will pull hooks from this database. It may go try to find more hooks on YouTube or more titles, and it will update this database. So that's a content intelligence vault. And then there's the Readwise database. This is actually my favorite. So I have this tool called Readwise. I think it's like $5 a month or something like that. But if I go in here, I'll show you. So anytime I sync it with my Kindle, and anytime I read a book, the notes automatically go in here. They just auto-populate. I don't even have to do anything. And then it integrates with Notion so that all the notes just auto-populate inside of Notion. So here's some of the books I've been reading this week. China Root, Think on These Things, Do the Work, Super Intelligence, Your Next 5 Moves. And you can see inside of any of these, it has, the last highlighted, the number of highlights, and then all the highlights are just put in here, right? So Claude Code can access those. And a lot of times when I'm creating content, I like to reference things that I've read. I like to take ideas from different sources, and I'll show you that in action in a second. So that's the database, right? So now I want to show you Claude Code. So Claude Code it works inside of a treadmill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go type in Claude here. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the ideate function. So I have a lot of different commands and agents and processes in here. I've been testing different content creation processes. This is one of the best ones. So this is the ideate command. I actually just created this live on one of the YouTube videos that I recorded recently. So this is the idea capture. So this is where all my content processes start. I basically want it, and I set it up so that it asks me, it has like a 5-phase process wherever I'm creating content, and it asks me a bunch of questions before it responds, because I want it to be as personalized as possible. I want to actually create this content with Claude. I don't want Claude to create it for me. So what is an interesting idea that we could do? I've been reading about Taoism, spirituality. I've been reading about business. Let me actually look at my Readwise database to see if there's anything interesting off the top of my head. So Think on These Things could be a really interesting starting point. Purpose and Profit from Dan Coe, Spirit of Hope. Yeah, I really like the Spirit of Hope because everyone's feeling so much despair these days when it comes to AI. So the Spirit of Hope and Think on These Things could be an interesting start. So here's what I would do. So I've been thinking about how AI is making people so down these days. Everyone's so in their head. They're stuck in this feeling of despair and of just like darkness when it comes to AI. At least people in the AI safety space. And there's other people that are, we could call them naive techno optimists. And they basically just think that AI is gonna change the world and solve everything, and the world's gonna be a utopia, which is absolutely not true. Because the technology that we create, it has values embedded within it. And currently those values aren't very aligned, right? And so we kind of had two opposites of this extreme. And so I want to take quotes from the book The Spirit of Hope by Byung-Chul Han, where he talks about how hope is not just a naive optimism, but when you go deep into the despair, on the other side of it, you can actually find a grounded form of hope. And this relates to what Krishnamurti was talking about in the book Think on These Things. And so I want to pull quotes from both of those books to create a compelling narrative and thesis around what a grounded vision of the future of AI is, that is like optimistic, but it's grounded, it's not naive. So let's pull quotes from both of these books to further that aim. And then once we finish that, we can then go and pull quotes from other books that maybe I didn't think about that could support our claims. And this tool is called Monologue, how I dictate into the computer. And so, boom. So I just added that. And now what it's going to do is, and sometimes I don't even say like starting with a book. Sometimes I'll just say, let's talk about how AI safety and optimism. And then I just let it kind of find the books that it wants, or find the notes. It can, I have voice notes in there. So it can like find the different voice notes that I've captured. It can find just in all the ideas that I'm thinking about. But I actually wanted to start with like a couple of books that I've read, and I like the creative process itself. What I've learned is you take ideas, right? You take ideas that you've been thinking about, and you kind of sense, I feel like there's a connection point between these two things, or this topic feels like it could incorporate these different ideas in a really coherent way. You kind of had this like gut sense of it. And then once you sense that, you kind of go and you explore that connection, and then that connection becomes more clear as you move towards it, right? And so it looks like it found 84 highlights with this one, grounded hope and meaning. All right, so can you actually just output the quotes from the Spirit of Hope and from Think on These Things? I want to see some of the quotes and start to actually ideate around them. And then feel free to output quotes from the other books and the other sources that you found. But I want to see the quotes from Think on These Things and the Spirit of Hope, so that we can start to find some connection points. All right, so I'm going to let it go and actually output these. So it's going to fetch the full highlights. Inside of this, it usually triggers an agent and I think it might automatically trigger it once we reach the next phase of this process, but I think it jumped the gun a little bit. So agents are basically I just give them instructions on how to use various different MCPs. So for example, I have the Notion Research Synthesizer agent, which would probably fetch Notion a little bit better. But that's okay, because it's fetching it right here. So it says, boom, here are the key quotes organized by connection points. And you can see it's already queuing up the next task. So like if I press Command or Control T, catch quotes, boom, identify connection, launch YouTube title and hook research agents, develop planning questions with the copywriting strategist agent, write full script with the Dan Co copywriting principles, save to the content database, and provide a recording checklist. So you can see it's already thinking ahead, right? So it's still thinking. If I do Control O, we'll actually be able to see what it's thinking. So if I go down to the bottom, boom, great. I've fetched these books. I need to mark the first to do as complete. You can see its reasoning in here. In the Spirit of Hope, boom, there's some core ideas, connection points. Both reject naive optimism. Both emphasize action rooted in reality. Both warn against becoming/achieving mentality. Both advocate for direct relationship with reality. That's pretty freaking interesting. All right, so boom, your thesis is emerging, right? And so this is where you create content that's authentic, because it's about things that you're thinking about. It's deep. It's not just, surface level trendy content. But yet, you'll see in a second, we are going to go out and search titles of videos and hooks in the space to make it compelling. But that's not like the core of the process. That's secondary. The core of the process is taking the ideas that I'm having about things and forming them into a compelling vision and script. So we can see here the different pieces of content. Hopeful thinking is not optimistic thinking. Unlike hope, optimism lacks negativity. It knows neither doubt nor despair. The deeper the despair, the more intense the hope. That is the dialectic of hope. The negativity of despair deepens hope. The higher hope soars, the deeper its roots. In this, it differs from optimism. Optimism lacks negativity. Amid deep despair, absolute hope makes action possible again. There's no difference between optimism and pessimism. One mirrors the other. Optimists and pessimists are both blind to the possible. They cannot conceive of an event that would constitute a surprising twist to the way things are going. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. So now if we go to Krishnamurti, to live is to find out for yourself what is true. And you can do this only when there is freedom. It's only when you're constantly inquiring, constantly observing, constantly learning that you find truth, God, or love. And you cannot inquire, observe, learn. You cannot be deeply aware if you are afraid. Don't be afraid of discontent. So all these are really interesting. So then we go into technology and embedded values. A neoliberal regime is a regime of fear. It isolates people by making them entrepreneurs of themselves. Total competition and the increasing pressure to perform erodes society. Damn, these are some deep quotes. It actually talked about artificial intelligence. Lacks the capacity for thinking simply because it does not have a friend or a lover. Eros is alien to it. It does not feel desire for others. Alright, so we're going the trap of becoming. Then it's finding the connection point. Intelligence as direct perception, freedom in action. Both Han and Krishnamurti reject naive optimism, blind faith that things will work out, and doomerism, paralysis from despair. Instead, they point to a third way, grounded hope born from direct perception of reality. Han, hope deepens through despair dialectically. It's not avoiding darkness, but going through it. Krishnamurti, intelligence emerges from observing what is without fear, not from accumulating beliefs. For AI specifically, technology embeds the values of its creators. We're building an AI from a consciousness that hasn't faced its own darkness. The answer isn't optimism, AI will save us, or doomerism, AI will destroy us, but cultivating the intelligence to perceive what's actually happening. All right, so that last point's really interesting. So what I'll usually do is I'll say, like, this connection point feels really alive. Then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say something like, I'll take some of these quotes. So I think there was one in here that I really liked. The deeper the despair, the more intense the hope. All right, that's an interesting one. I really like this quote about the deeper the despair, the bigger the hope. Some other ones. Talking about Eros is an interesting point. Neoliberal regime is a regime of fear, entrepreneurs of themselves. That's actually a really interesting point. I think I could make a full video on that. And you can start to see how these content ideas are like branching out. I start to see multiple different angles when I start creating. Educated to be alone. Do you ever go out for a walk by yourself? Thesis again. Hope is not a reaction. Freedom is a reaction. Until we understand reaction and go beyond it, we are never free. That relates deeply to Krishnamurti's. So I'm going to go, I think there was one from Krishnamurti about reaction. When you criticize, you are not in relationship. Prejudice and ideas we have. So let's do this. All right, then what I'll do is something like this. I think that all these quotes relate that the feeling of reaction, that hope is not a reaction, freedom is not a reaction. Krishnamurti talks about freedom as like a natural intelligence of observing a situation independent of all these cultural frames, and that the deeper that we are in a state of reaction, the more that we lean towards either doomerism or naive techno-optimism, and that there's actually a middle ground here. And now you'll see there's sometimes I like to try to bring more angles in. So let's say I have those angles. I could say something like, now I want you to use sequential thinking and divergent thinking. I want you to use the sequential thinking MCP, but also use the tool of divergent thinking to think about what other connection points could exist with this thesis, with potentially other books in my Readwise database. So I want you to use the Notion research synthesis agent to, after you've done divergent thinking, to find potentially other books or angles that I might not be thinking about. The sequential thinking MCP is a really cool tool, by the way. And so what it's going to do now is it's going to go and it's going to like branch out. It's going to do like advanced reasoning. It's going to branch out and it's going to try to find other angles here that I'm missing, right? I actually think I set up too many. Oh yeah, it's still working. So it's sequential thinking. And sequential thinking basically just means that there's an MCP where it does like a long thought process before it outputs anything. So it says total thoughts it thinks it needs to achieve an outcome. And then it says thought number, total thoughts. So it's actually thinking through 8 layers of reasoning, right? So you can see it's starting with the course thesis, diving deeper, and it just makes its quality of thinking that much more deep. So I'm going to let this run. I'm going to let this do 8 layers of sequential thinking. And then once it finishes this, it's going to then go and search Notion for more quotes that are going to add different angles of perspective that I'm not seeing. And this is what I think, this is what I'm excited about, is it unlocks this process of using, like, retrieving information from these like massive databases inside of Notion that I have. I used to use like, you know, Notion, Rome Research, Obsidian, all these tools. And I always thought like they could solve the problem. This is the first thing that I've ever found that's actually solved the problem of being able to like retrieve information. I basically just dialogue with it and it's finding this information for me and it's surfacing it. Like I may have never thought to surface a note from somewhere, but AI can find it. And then I become the one that's like actually, rather than having to spend my time trying to like search through notes, I'm spending my time just thinking and trying to connect dots and just being in this. It has triggered states of such deep work. Like I can't even communicate to you the depth of the deep work that I've experienced from using this process. Like I will literally go, I've been in a state, like a flow state, for 8 hours using this process. I've literally been inside of Claude Code for 8 hours straight, just like thinking through the content that I wanted to create. If you watch We're Still in the Dark Ages or something like that, the video that I released, that one was created when I was just in this flow state for an entire day, just thinking through different angles. And the cool thing is that it can still find hooks and titles, which you'll see in a second, but I can weave together thinkers and quotes, and it increases the quality of my thinking, because sure, it's retrieving this information, but then I am like dialoguing and I'm like, what about this thing? What about this thing? Have we thought about this angle before? Can you like find me more angles that maybe we didn't think about? And then I'm like, oh, that's an interesting angle. What about this? And so it's using my critical thinking faculties, but then it's like surfacing the information without me having to think about it, right? So now there's this Notion research agent, and what it's doing is it's taking the output from this sequential thinking MCP, and then it's using the Notion research agent to dive even deeper, right? So I'm gonna let this go for a while. Might take a little bit. A lot of times, so the cool thing here, the really cool thing here, is if you create a new window, a lot of times I'll have multiple windows going, right? Can't do this inside of Claude Desktop. What I'll do is I'll have multiple windows going, and maybe I'll have like the title researcher in one and a different one, and sometimes it takes minutes to fetch. Sometimes I'll even have, if I have another monitor, I'll have like 4 or 5 terminal windows at the same time. But then I'll just do like, yeah, I want to do like a hook researcher. Research like hooks on the topic of naive techno-optimism and how most people either have a naively optimistic view of AI or an intensely doomer version of AI, and neither of those are fully true, and that there's actually a grounded middle way. So like maybe I just give it a little bit of context like that, and then I just have like a separate agent run and go like research me hooks. And so this one is going to go try to find YouTube. Okay, and now we can go back and we can see that this one started running again, or it finished rather. Done, perfect. Research uncovered some powerful connections, strong new connections. John Vervaeke, The Meaning Crisis. The meaning crisis is a crisis of relevance realization. Okay, this is actually interesting. I really like the John Vervaeke. But I've been referencing him a lot in my work these days, so maybe something else. The absurd. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. So, The Absurd by Albert Camus. Maybe. Technology. Oh, Marshall McLuhan. Okay, that's actually crazy. This is literally the perfect text. The Marshall McLuhan text is perfect here. So can we actually output some more quotes from Marshall McLuhan and tie them into the current thesis that we have? So Marshall McLuhan basically created this book. What was it called? It's basically about how the medium is the message, or the medium is the message, right? And so the book talks about how like the medium of technology creates the message, creates our experience of technology. And he had some really fascinating takes on technology and how it shapes our understanding of the world. So that's actually a really perfect segue between Byung-Chul Han, between Jiddu Krishnamurti, and Marshall McLuhan. And I think we could create a really compelling script based on this. And so you can start to see my ideation process. So I'm going to let it go. I'm going to compact it. We can actually look at the other one here, YouTube hook researcher. Based on this idea, it's going and it's doing some research on various different hooks for me. Might even add a new one here, and I'll do like a title researcher. I do context research titles. Let's find some titles for videos that basically bridge the gap between naive techno optimism and AI doomerism, and find the middle path and find this grounded middle way where we're not thinking that AI is going to solve all the world's problems, but we're also not in a state of doomerism where we think that AI is just going to kill us all in 2 years. Let that run. We have the kind of hooks researcher. Now we have the title researcher, and then we have this one. And so this is, it's compacting the conversation because we hit the context limit, and it's continuing. And then it's just going to continue. If you don't know what auto compact is, it basically lets you have an infinite context inside of Claude, because it takes your chat, it like basically summarizes it and keeps going. It doesn't make you start a new window. All right, so it's going to continue searching Notion. And the goal of this video really is just to show you a behind the scenes, right? So my other videos, I kind of just show you like a high level view of the system. But this one, I want to show you how I actually use the system, how I actually, build out content inside of Claude. And I'm using this process more and more these days. My goal is I've been trying to spend 4 hours every single morning doing this process inside of Claude so I can create really high quality content and eventually get to the place where I'm like one of the leading experts on AI, because I'm able to synthesize so many different perspectives and AI safety research and books from AI researchers, but I also bring in like philosophical perspectives. And I don't want to just be someone who covers AI research or AI tools or tutorials. I do a lot of tutorials on this channel because I like AI, but it's like I want to be the person that's bringing in like angles that no one has ever thought of before, and this is how I'm planning to do it. So it's search extensively. But not have the book in it. Maybe I didn't take notes on the book. I took notes on the back. I read it paperback. Go figure. All right, so we created both. We're created by both medium and creating it. This is the arc of culture. So it's actually, all right, so now it's going on to the title researcher and the hook researcher. I actually wish it would have found more quotes here, but I guess I don't even have them in my Notion. But now it's going to go and it's going to take the entire context and it's going to start researching titles and hooks. So we're already kind of doing some of that research over here. Found that your topic is highly specific. It is a maturity in English schools. Here. Right, just gonna pause this window. All right, so the interesting thing is that this command, this process here, because the process was kind of baked into the command, whenever we finish gathering information, it then automatically launches the title and the hook researcher. And then when it finishes that, if I go back to the tasks, it's then going to, launch the YouTube title and hook research. Then it's going to actually start asking me a bunch of questions about the research. It's going to ask me a bunch of questions about the research so that it can extract more information of me before we start writing the script and adding it to the content database. So I'm just gonna let this run for a few minutes. These two agents usually take quite a while, like usually 5 minutes a piece. So I'm just gonna let these run, and then I might come back, but it's finished. Alright, so I recorded the rest of this video, like 10 minutes of it, and I realized the screen wasn't actually recording. So I'm just going to re-up it here. So basically, it was asking me about hooks. Which hooks do I like the best? I was saying, like, I don't really like any of these angles. Let's use the hook database inside of the content intelligence vault. It then went inside of Notion to use this content intelligence vault. It found me some hooks, and I read through all of them, and I only found one that I actually liked. This one, that hope doesn't come from avoiding despair about AI, but going through it. And then it basically asked me, like, who is your audience? Who do you want to work with? How do you want this script to take form? And I was having some back and forth with it. And then I was talking about how you can have it repurpose it. So I have this repurpose system where it can repurpose it into a bunch of pieces of short form content. It actually came back with, hey, we haven't actually finished the script, so don't you want to finish the script first? And then there's the newsletter, where it actually takes the script and it converts it into like a newsletter. It takes out all the B-roll, kind of editing notes and so on and so forth. So this is really the process. And if you want to learn more about this, I actually have a complete inside of the community. You can find the link in the description. I have entire modules and courses on here's how you set up MCPs, agents. Here's how you set up these processes. Here's how you connect these agents together using commands. All this stuff that I showed you in this video, I walk through that in this module. I give you all the system prompts, all the agent prompts, the commands, the markdown files, everything you need to know, all links to all the MCPs, everything you need to know to kind of set up some of these content systems, your Life OS system. And so if you're interested in actually diving in, previously we talked a lot about AI business content, how to build a business selling AI services, like building AI systems for people. But now I'm adding in this Life OS thing. So there's going to be kind of two tracks to this. Either you can learn how to build and sell AI systems, or you can learn how to build your own kind of personal Life OS to manage your business, to interact, to send emails, to create content being the most high leverage thing that you can do. Then we had like all the workshop recordings, AI agents, prompt engineering. But the core thing is that there will be an entire track in here that by the time you're watching this, with the AI agent prompts, or the Claude code prompts, everything that we talk about in this video, you'll be able to set this up for yourself. Let's go check that out. I also have a new publication called Thinking Machines, where I'm publishing all my ideas that I have through this process of content creation with Claude Code is being added in here. So you can see the most recent one is called AI is Breaking Reality. It's basically about how AI is breaking down our ability to make sense of things. So that's like one of the first scripts that I did using this process. It has various different quotes, interesting ideas in it. So subscribe to the newsletter for free. If you want to build the system yourself, you can do it in the community. But I hope that this was really insightful to actually see this process in action. So thank you so much for watching.